What if the child you destroyed your marriage for turned out not to be yours? Mark Thompson thought he had it all figured out. Leave the wife who couldn't give him children, marry the secretary who promised him a future, and finally hold the son he always dreamed of. But lies breed lies. And the truth waiting for him at the end of this road isn't just betrayal. It's a revelation so devastating, it will burn his world to ash. Stay with me, because once you hear what really happened, you'll never forget this story. 8 years, Emily. Mark says, voice clipped, suit jacket still on like armor. 8 years of waiting. Emily's hands are steady on a porcelain mug that's gone cold. 8 years of trying. She answers soft but not weak. 8 years of doctors and blood tests and calendars and hope. He laughs without a smile. Hope doesn't make a family. And punishment does, she asks, eyes lifting to his. There's love in them. There's also fatigue, the kind that doesn't sleep off. Outside, a siren darts by. Inside, silence lands like snow. Mark paces, the way men pace when they're convincing themselves they're right. You always have an explanation, Em. A reason. A plan. But at some point, we have to admit it. He forces the words out, each one a small cruelty. You can't give me a child. There it is. The blade on the table. Emily flinches. Only a heartbeat, then stillness. We were told it was unexplained, she says carefully, like stepping across thin ice. We were told not to blame. We promised each other we wouldn't. Promises don't change reality. Reality is that we're together, she says, and the word together trembles. Reality is that we have options, adoption, surrogacy. Remember the names we wrote down, the late night searches, We can't live on maybe, he cuts in. His phone lights on the counter. He doesn't look at it. He wants to. He doesn't. Emily notices. She has memorized the choreography of his attention. Her voice gentles, which is somehow braver than matching his volume. Do you want to tell me who's been calling you after midnight? He meets her eyes. Does not blink. Work. Work smells like Chanel No. 5 now. He exhales, too quickly. You're being ridiculous. And you're rehearsing, she says. Every sentence sounds like you practiced it in an elevator. The city hum swells, a subway's iron breath rising through the floor. Let's not do this, he says, but it's too late. They are already doing it. Scene 4 of the fight they didn't finish last night. I'm exhausted. I need sleep. What you need, Emily says, is to tell me the truth before it finds another way to enter this home. He picks up his phone and pretends to read nothing. She sets the cold mug down, and porcelain touches marble with a small, decisive click of a gavel. I booked you a follow-up with Dr. Adler, she says, a final bridge offered. We missed last month's appointment. We can. Mark's eyebrows lift with a tired kind of cruelty. You make everything plural until it's not working. Marriage is plural, Emily says, even when it hurts. He stands there, expensive and unreachable, like a store window after closing. Outside, a billboard blinks. A baby grins over a diaper brand. It feels personal. It isn't. Good night, he says, which is not good and not night, and picks up his briefcase as if distance can be carried. Emily watches the door close with a hush too polite for endings. The apartment holds its breath. She leans both palms on the counter and stares at her reflection in the oven's glass. Two Emilys, one with hope, one with knowledge. She switches off the kitchen light. The city remains on, mercilessly awake. Morning is crisp and glassy. Midtown is a chessboard of suits. Moves are made before coffee cools. Mark walks into the firm's lobby and nods to the receptionist who smiles faster for partners. He doesn't look left, where Jessica Miller waits by the elevators, the exact shade of trouble that pretends to be rescued. Good morning, Mr. Thompson, Jessica says, voice of practice velvet. He keeps it professional because he knows the rules. Morning, Jessica. But her perfume arrives a step before she does. And what a city cannot give, scent can, the illusion of being seen. In the mirrored elevator, their reflections negotiate. He adjusts a cuff. She pretends not to notice. He hasn't slept well. Floors blink upward. Silence condenses. Your 9 a.m. move to 11, she says, deft with the day's weather. I took the liberty of setting up the Chicago deck. If you want to run through it. Later, he says. I've got calls. Of course. A beat. You're okay. He could say yes. He could say nothing. Instead, just a long night. Work? She asks, and lets the question hang like a coat on a chair. He doesn't correct her. The elevator dings. By noon, they've traded 5 emails, 3 necessary, 2 unnecessary. By 2, they've closed a minor case with a major billing. By 5, she's at his door with a neatly bound brief and an almost smile. Flight to Chicago tomorrow, she says. I booked the hotel you like. Corner room. Quiet. Thank you. She lingers the way people do when they've already decided to linger. You know, she says lightly, some cities heal you by being loud. Chicago is different. It heals by letting you hear yourself think. Does it? It does, she says, and leaves before he answers, which is a kind of answer. The office empties at 7. Mark remains, sculpted by desk lamp, drafting a future that keeps rewriting itself. His phone lights again. Emily's name. He lets it ring into a flat silence that feels like erosion. A minute later, a text. I made dinner. Come home. He reads it twice and types nothing. The city outside blinks. Inside, he stares at a cursor blinking with it. Jessica passes by on her way out, coat folded over her arm, winter soft at the collar. Long night, she asks, not stepping in, not stepping away. Seems like it. Eat something, she says, and places a protein bar on the corner of his desk like a truce he didn't know he needed. He almost says thank you. He does say it when she's already down the hall. He goes home late to a plate covered in foil and a living room arranged for forgiveness. Blanket on the arm of the couch. Movie paused at the menu. Candles melted into small golden lakes. Emily is asleep in the bedroom, one hand fanned over his side of the mattress. He stands in the doorway and watches her breathe and misses her from 6 feet away. He eats standing at the counter. The food tastes like effort. He rinses the plate, leaves it to air dry, and slides into bed without waking her. The city makes its 1,000 small noises. He stares at the dark and counts the spaces between them. The next argument arrives disguised as breakfast. Arguments often do. I'm coming to the appointment, Emily says, pouring coffee, making the morning normal with intention. I can't. I'm flying to Chicago. We've rescheduled twice. I have clients. We have a life. He sets the cup down, too hard. Coffee sloshes. Don't do that, he says. Don't make my job the villain. And don't make my body the fault, she fires back, so clear the air sharpens around the words. They stare, exhausted by being right. Emily, he says softer. He stops. What does he want? A child. A future. An absolution. A different version of the past. Her face folds like paper carefully creased. I want you, she says simply, even if we never hold a child with your smile. I want you. He looks at the ring on her finger. Thin, elegant, everything they promised. He looks away first. I have to go, he says, and kisses her forehead as if that can count. Her skin is warm. The kiss is cold. Airports are confessionals without priests. Mark sits at gate 21 watching strangers collect themselves in small, private ways, stretching, sipping, scrolling through lives they'll return to in a few hours. He prefers the time between places. It is where no decisions are due. Jessica arrives with boarding passes and a grin that doesn't show teeth. I got us upgraded, she says, proud of the small magic assistants learn, making the world behave for the men who refuse to bend. Thank you, he says, and this time the gratitude sticks. On the plane, the cabin dims. New York becomes a constellation leaking away beneath them. Jessica offers him a mint and, accidentally or not, brushes his fingers. Electricity can be manufactured. All it needs is consent. He doesn't pull back fast enough to pretend it meant nothing. She notices. She looks forward, then down, then at him through lashes curated to be doors. Listen, she says, the word landing with intention. I know things are not simple. I'm not asking for complicated. I'm asking for honest. He turns to the window. The night outside is a velvet with no seam. He is a man who wins arguments for a living. And here he is, wordless. Jessica, he says, just her name. I won't be your secret if your secret is a lie, she murmurs. But I also won't pretend you're not drowning. He breathes in a long, quiet inhale that tastes like a decision. Somewhere over Pennsylvania. He nods once, barely, but enough. She closes her eyes, not to sleep, but to pause the world at the exact frame where it changes. Chicago greets them with steel and wind and the clean, moral chill of the lake. At the hotel, Jessica hands him a key card and keeps her own. Separate rooms. Correct. Almost. Run through at 8, she asks. 8, he says. Good night. In his room, the city is a map of light folded open. He takes off his tie and his wedding ring in one motion and places them on the nightstand like 2 items he will pick up in the morning, even though one of them he might not. The phone on the desk glows with a single message. Dr. Adler confirmed 3 p.m. Friday. I'll go even if you can't. E. He types. Thank you. He deletes it. He types. I'm in Chicago. He deletes that too. He types nothing. He showers long enough to erase the day. When he steps out, there is a knock, soft and undecided. He opens the door to Jessica in a hotel robe and the kind of distance that is shorter than it looks. Forgot the hard drive, she says, holding it up, plausible and dangerous. He should take it and say goodnight. He does take it. He does not say goodnight. We have an early start, he offers, a last-minute appeal to virtue. She tilts her head. We have a choice, she answers, and for a second, the room becomes 2 possible rooms, the night 2 possible nights, his life 2 possible lives collapsed into one decision that feels like gravity. Mark steps back to let her in. New York keeps humming 3 states away, indifferent and bright. In a quiet Boston apartment, a woman sits at a kitchen table and Googles how to forgive without forgetting, and reads silently until the sun edges the windowsill. In Chicago, a door clicks shut, and the first betrayal begins as softly as a sigh. And none of them know yet that the truth waiting at the end of this story isn't just cruel. It's precise. Chicago does not seduce with beauty. It seduces with confidence. Steel towers cut the sky, the river bends like it knows secrets, and the wind sweeps everything clean except the conscience. Mark and Jessica move through it like 2 people rehearsing a story they haven't admitted they're writing. Business meetings by day, whispered drinks by night, stolen silences in hotel elevators where reflections linger longer than they should. In the boardroom, she is the diligent assistant, pen poised, eyes forward. In the hotel lounge, she is laughter poured into a glass, leaning close enough for his wedding ring to burn against his finger. Chicago suits you, she says one evening, her hand sliding across a table littered with case files that no longer matter. Ow, you're lighter here. He doesn't answer, but he doesn't pull away. And silence, in the right place, is consent. Back in New York, Emily notices. The cold side of the bed stays cold. Dinner spoils in the fridge. The calendar of fertility treatments gathers dust on the refrigerator, its squares of hope unmarked. She studies him across the breakfast table, the one morning he makes it home before dawn. Are you in love with her? She asks, without tremor. He doesn't answer. His silence is heavier this time. Her coffee grows cold, untouched. Then say it, she whispers. Say it so I can stop waiting for a man who already left. But he doesn't. He grabs his briefcase, and the door closes like a verdict. The affair sharpens into routine. Chicago trips become essential. Jessica's laughter becomes soundtrack. And then one night, under the amber glow of a hotel lamp, Jessica whispers words designed to end what little was left of his marriage. I'm pregnant. The room stops. His world tilts. For Mark, this is proof, the ultimate vindication. For years he has told himself the problem was Emily. And now, here is evidence, living and growing inside Jessica, that he was right all along. He takes her hand, smiles for the first time in months. You don't know what this means to me. She smiles back, soft and triumphant. I think I do. Emily receives the news not from him, but from whispers, friends with half-truths, colleagues with smirks too cruel to hide. Still, she asks him directly, still holding out a final thread of hope. Tell me it isn't true. Mark meets her eyes, steady, unflinching. It's true. The silence after is not silence at all. It is the sound of a heart breaking so loudly that only the deaf can ignore it. You're divorcing me? She asks. I have to, he says, as if it's a moral duty. I want a family. She can give me that. Emily laughs once, short, bitter, the sound of glass shattering inside a throat. You're trading vows for biology. No, he insists. I'm trading emptiness for life. She studies him, memorizing the man who used to be her world. Then go, she says finally, her voice steady in the ruins. But when the truth comes, remember this moment. Remember what you chose. The papers are signed in a cold Manhattan office, pen strokes sharp as knife cuts. Emily moves to Boston with her sister, her world packed in boxes and silence. Mark, he moves Jessica into a condo overlooking Lake Michigan. He tells himself he is finally free, finally beginning, finally about to hold the child he always dreamed of. He walks the Chicago streets lighter, almost proud. He has a new wife, a baby on the way, a future that feels inevitable. To everyone who asks, he is confident. Yes, he says, I'll be a father soon. But late at night, when the city sleeps and Jessica drifts off beside him, he stares at the ceiling and feels the echo of Emily's last words. When the truth comes, remember this moment. And though he doesn't know it yet, the truth is already walking toward him, slow, certain, and merciless. Chicago welcomed Mark as if it had been waiting. The skyline stretched wide like a promise. The lake gleamed steel blue in the wind, and for the first time in years, he told himself he was free. No more arguments. No more late-night accusations. No more cold dinners waiting on marble countertops in New York. Here, with Jessica, he could finally breathe. Their wedding was quick, almost careless. A courthouse ceremony attended by two colleagues who smiled politely, as if they already knew how the story would end. Jessica wore white, but not innocence. Mark wore a grin sharp enough to cut the past in half. By the time champagne flutes clinked in the dim corner of a Chicago bistro, Emily was already a ghost in his memory. Or so he thought. The baby became his obsession. He bought tiny clothes, painted a nursery in pale blue, ran his hands across cribs and strollers like a man touching victory. For every ultrasound, he was there, chest swelling when the heartbeat thudded through speakers. He told anyone who would listen, partners at the firm, old college friends, even strangers at a bar, I'm going to be a father. Finally, Jessica thrived in the glow of expectation. She moved through their condo like a queen in waiting, belly rounding beneath silk dresses, voice lowered with practiced sweetness whenever she spoke of the child. Our boy, she said often. Your son. But beneath the rehearsed perfection, shadows lingered. Mark noticed them first in whispers. A neighbor's offhand comment. Funny, I thought she was already showing when you two first got together. He brushed it off. People gossiped. Chicago was small that way. But the timeline nagged at him, a splinter under skin. Then came Jessica's absences. Nights when she stayed out longer than work required. Phone calls answered in another room. A purse snapped shut too quickly when he walked in. Mark, so skilled at cross-examining witnesses, found himself avoiding questions in his own home. He wanted the dream too badly to risk cracking it. When the baby arrived, a boy with lungs strong enough to rattle the sterile walls of the hospital, Mark wept. He pressed the child to his chest, inhaled the newness, and told himself the doubts didn't matter anymore. He was a father. That was the truth. The congratulations poured in. Colleagues slapped his back. Old friends toasted him. Jessica glowed in silk robes, tired but triumphant. For weeks, the world seemed to confirm his gamble had been right. He had left Emily for this, and this tiny, fragile miracle, was proof he had chosen well. Until the comments began. At first, harmless observations. He doesn't look much like you, Mark. A laugh, a shrug, another glass of whiskey. Then sharper. Strange. Doesn't look like Jessica either. A pause too long, a glance too pointed. Mark stared at the baby sometimes, searching for himself. The curve of a jaw, the angle of an ear, the tint of the eyes. Genetics was a cruel artist. Wasn't it possible the child simply favored some long-forgotten grandparent? But at night, when Jessica drifted into sleep, he stood over the crib and wondered if blood could lie. The crack widened at a dinner party. A colleague, drunk on wine, leaned across the table. "Hey, Mark, not to be rude, but that kid's got blue eyes. Neither of you do, right?" Funny, huh? The laughter around the table was easy. Mark's wasn't. That night, he ordered a DNA test. He told Jessica it was routine paperwork for the baby's insurance. She didn't argue. She didn't blink. She just nodded and poured herself another glass of water. The results came back 2 weeks later in a thin envelope. Mark opened it alone in his office, the blinds drawn, the city outside roaring in traffic and rain. The words were clinical, absolute, probability of paternity, 0%. 0. The room spun. The air thinned. He read it again, then again, until the black letters blurred. His son, his proof, his victory, wasn't his. The blood in the child's veins belonged to another man. Jessica confessed that night, cornered by evidence she couldn't charm away. "It was before us," she said quickly, voice rising, hands trembling. "Before you divorced Emily, before it became real. I didn't even know until later. I swear, Mark, I thought he was yours." Mark's voice broke into a roar. "You let me divorce her. You let me tear my life apart while you carried another man's child." Jessica's tears fell fast, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. "I love you. Doesn't that matter?" But love was no longer enough. The condo walls shrank. The nursery became a chamber of humiliation. Every toy, every crib bar, every blue blanket screamed betrayal. The neighbors' whispers grew louder. The congratulations turned into pity. The man who had boasted of his fatherhood now avoided elevators, avoided colleagues, avoided mirrors. Late one night, Mark sat alone on the balcony, whiskey burning down his throat. The DNA results spread on the table like a final verdict. Emily's voice echoed in his head. "When the truth comes, remember this moment." And here it was. The truth. Cruel, merciless, undeniable. The child was not his. Jessica had never been what he imagined, and the life he had destroyed was the only one that had been real. Chicago's skyline shimmered before him, a cruel audience of glass and steel. And for the first time, Mark felt small, smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The wind howled off the lake, cold and precise, carrying a whisper that sounded almost like laughter. The beginning of the end had arrived. Chicago had given Mark the illusion of rebirth. Now it stripped him bare. The DNA results were no longer paper. They were shackles. Everywhere he turned, he saw them. In the child's face, in Jessica's eyes, in the mirror that reflected a man he no longer recognized. He tried anger first. It came naturally. Raised voices, shattered glasses, doors slammed so hard the neighbors called security. Jessica defended, cried, begged. But beneath every plea lay the single fact that could not be erased. The boy was not his. And yet, Mark could not let go. To walk away meant admitting he had gambled everything and lost. To stay meant living with humiliation that scalded every waking hour. Nights blurred into whiskey and silence. He stopped going to the firm's social events. He stopped answering friends' calls. At work, he wore his fury like a suit, winning cases with cruelty sharpened by shame. The name Thompson no longer meant prestige. It meant scandal whispered in elevators, smirks disguised as sympathy. One evening, after a particularly brutal fight, Jessica screamed the words that sliced deeper than the DNA results ever could. "You want to know the truth? You were never going to be a father. Not with me. Not with Emily. Not with anyone. You're sterile, Mark. Sterile." The word detonated. He staggered. "What did you say?" Her chest heaved, mascara streaked, but her eyes gleamed with the power of the wound she had just inflicted. "You heard me. Your precious doctor knew it years ago. Emily knew something wasn't right. You blamed her, humiliated her, destroyed her, when it was you all along. The room spun. He grabbed her shoulders, shaking, desperate. You're lying. Am I? She spat. Call Adler. Go on. Ask him what he hid from you. The call happened the next morning. Dr. Adler's voice was heavy with the resignation of a man who had carried his secret too long. Mark, the tests we ran 8 years ago were conclusive. You had severe oligospermia, near zero sperm count. I thought if I gave you more time, if I let you keep trying, perhaps, but I knew. I always knew. Mark's throat dried to sand. And you never told me? I thought protecting your marriage was more important than crushing your pride. Pride. That word clanged like a verdict. Pride had led him here. Pride had cost him Emily, cost him the only woman who had loved him through failure, cost him the only marriage that mattered. He dropped the phone. It cracked on the hardwood. He did not bend to pick it up. Memories came rushing now, cruel in their clarity. Emily's face the night he told her he was leaving. The way she begged for truth, not mercy. Her final words, when the truth comes, remember this moment. And here it was. The truth, sharp and merciless, burning through him like acid. He had not left Emily because she couldn't give him children. He had left her because he couldn't face that he never could. Jessica had been an escape, not a solution. The child had been a lie, not salvation. And now, all that remained was the wreckage of a man who had traded loyalty for lust, love for ego, and gained nothing but emptiness. Mark walked the Chicago streets like a ghost. Neon lights blurred in rain-slick reflections. Horns blared. Strangers brushed past, unaware they were touching ruins. He wandered into bars, sat with strangers, drank until faces blurred into forgiveness. But forgiveness never came. One night, he stumbled into Millennium Park, staring up at the bean, its mirrored surface throwing back his reflection 1,000 times. 1,000 marks, each one smaller, weaker, lonelier. He pressed his palm to the cold steel and whispered Emily's name. The city swallowed a whole. Meanwhile, Emily rebuilt. Boston gave her quiet mornings and oceans that forgave without question. She found work, therapy, and strength. She did not remarry, not yet, but she smiled again. She walked through farmers' markets, bought fresh flowers, and let sunlight touch her without guilt. When news reached her, through a mutual friend, through whispers, that Jessica's child was not Mark's, she closed her eyes and breathed. Not satisfaction, not vengeance, just release. The weight she carried was not hers anymore. Back in Chicago, Jessica moved out. She took the child, her silence, and the last fragments of his dignity. The condo echoed with absence. Mark sat alone on the nursery floor, surrounded by stuffed animals and blankets, and wept. Not for Jessica, not even for the child. For Emily, for what he had done to her. He pressed his wedding ring, the one he had once thrown into a drawer, against his palm until it cut deep. Blood welled. He did not stop. The final humiliation came at the firm. A rival leaned across the conference table and said, "Careful, Thompson. Not every man's legacy survives him. Some die with no heirs at all." The room erupted in forced laughter. Mark smiled back, thin and brittle, then excused himself. He did not return. Mark stands on his balcony, the Chicago skyline blazing before him, the city alive and indifferent. The wind cuts, sharp as truth. He holds a glass, but doesn't drink. He holds the DNA results, but doesn't read. He holds nothing that matters anymore. He left the woman who loved him for the illusion of a future she would have given him in other ways. He traded loyalty for lies, marriage for a mistress, love for ego. And when the truth came, it wasn't just betrayal that undid him. It was the revelation that the emptiness he blamed on others was born inside himself. Mark drops the glass. It shatters into silence. The city roars on. Flames do not always burn wood. Sometimes they burn pride. And when they do, there is nothing left but ash.